What's going on, everybody?
You see me there? Okay, perfect. Welcome back, everyone. We are doing our Ward 9 conversations, and it is Wednesday, July 12th. Probably the last one we're going to do for a little bit over the summer as the summer gets busy with lots of events. But this week, we have so many events happening in the community. Looking forward to talking about. Hi, Michelle. I see you there. We have so many events here. We'll get our ward9.ca page up to talk about them. But the most important one, I guess, would be Ribfest. Ribfest is happening in Ward 9. That is happening Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We also have the Lebanese Food Festival happening. There's a Filipino Food Festival happening at Celebration Square. Lots of other stuff. So let me get this up and running, and we'll get this going. We're excited to have Dagma join us from the Rest Centers. I did a podcast with them earlier this month that we released shortly, so we get to talk about that as well, even though, there's going to be lots of stuff to talk about with Rest. The Rest is doing some great work.
Welcome to Apple TV. Oops. To use voiceover with your Apple TV.
Don't mind the Apple TV going off in the background there. So Maya was supposed to join us as well, but she's not able to do it, but that's fine. It's still going to be all good. So just waiting for a few guys to join us. If you're watching this afterwards, thank you so much for watching the replays. We see some great comments that come up in the posts as well after the fact. So this is a great way to communicate. Do you remember when Mayor Hazel, for those of you who are watching this after, remember when Mayor Hazel used to do those Thursday nights on Rogers TV at 10 o'clock where people would call in and make their complaints known? I love that format, and I like being on the spot and having to think through those things. So this is kind of like the 2.0 version where we could do that and you could join us on the screen. So even when I don't have guests, you are more than welcome. There. You are more than welcome to join us on the screen. And also, I have to say, it's we're trying to draw everyone to ward9.ca as a spot where we have the one central place to answer questions, to triage it out to the right people, and to address matters that come up. So the danger of using all these social media platforms is that I will get messages on direct message here, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and all this stuff. But I still strongly encourage you to go to the website, ward9.ca. And if you have specific matters related to the ward, go to email martin.reid@mississauga.ca. So those are two main spots that everything kind of gets gathered into. So we want to kind of channel all of our information into those spots. So that's the main thing there. Chris Davidson, thank you for joining us. Chris, I've been thinking about you a lot lately as we've been having conversations around cycling infrastructure, people riding to work. And even today, we had a conversation with Brent. We had this info session. It's not a secret that we have this gentleman sit down with us today. Brent Todderlian, who's a city planner. And as we were talking about city planning, we're talking about what cycling infrastructure looks like. And that was probably the topic that spent most of our time. Because we have to think about how do we make it so that people have other options. And I really like the way that he was framing the conversation around driving. And we're doing all these things to our roads, narrowing them, adding cycle lanes, adding multimodal infrastructure for shared pathways, all those different things. And the way that he was phrasing is that when we do these things, it makes it easier for everyone, including the driver. It's not like it's a war against cars. It's actually doing things in a way that makes it easier for everyone, including the driver. So I really like that language, and I'm excited to see what that looks like in our corner of the world in Meadowvale, Central Air Mills, and Mississauga Business Park. The Meadowvale Business Park is the area that has been most neglected when it comes to cycle paths. A lot of the riding can happen in and through Meadowvale, along, Winston Churchill or Erin Parkway on those shared pathways, which is fantastic. But then it ends right at Mill Creek, basically. Nothing goes over Mill Creek into the actual employment areas, which is funny. So, I mean, it really looks like, now I'm thinking about it, like the cycle was just designed for residential recreation as opposed to actually commuting. So we need to build on that and make it such that people who are working at Cyclone or Samsung or police headquarters, all the businesses in that little node can ride if they happen to live in the medical area and make sure they can get jobs there too, right? So that's some of the thinking. So I like the way that we got thinking about all those different projects and things today. So I feel like I'm just downloading from a great meeting on city planning. And I'm going to ask you who are watching right now this question. And I've been asking this question to people who've had on as guests. When I was doing our urban planning meetings, we asked the question, is Mississauga urban or suburban or something in between? Is Mississauga urban or suburban or something in between? So I'm just going to leave that question out there for you. Please put your answers in the chat now, or if you're watching this after. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you on that. I'll leave that for a second while I'm opening up the Ward 9 piece. Hi there, Heather. Hi, Eugene. All right, party people. So here we go. So on the Ward 9 website, ward9.ca, you'll see the community event listing. So we have the Lebanese Festival, the annual Lebanese Festival, July 14th to 16th at Total Radaka Park. And that is happening all weekend long. The Rib Fest is also happening July 14th to 16th, and that is happening at Erin Mills Town Center. I'm so happy to see that that event is happening on a regular every year here. August has a few events coming up. Hot Rods for a Cause on August 13th, the Classic Car Show from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. So it's interesting to have a card show that early in the day. And the reason is they want more kids out. They want it to be more interactive. And it's a great fundraiser put on by the police as a fundraiser for cancer research for kids. Really, really good stuff. Yeah, so beyond that, I believe that if you have any other events, please put them in the chat so we know. I love attending, all the little events, whether it's a garage sale or something along those lines that's happening during a time. So if those are going on, please put it in the comment section. Or if it's a bigger event with a little bit more of a runway, email our office with it, and we'll put it on our list of events. There's some events that are happening on a regular basis, like the Meadowvale Park Run. Meadowvale Park Run happens every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. at Lake Aquitaine. That's a great group, a free run. You could go and all welcome, all levels of walk, run, roll. Volunteers are always needed. High school students, here's a good chance for you to get some hours. So that is happening. Another community event that's coming up is be a part of the Portraits of Mississauga. And Portraits of Mississauga is a visual arts initiative happening on July 13th at Erin Meadows Library. Once again, go on to ward9.ca and you can get all the information on all these amazing events. Cool. So our guest tonight, Dagma, is with Rest Centers, and they do some great work working with young people and transitioning them for housing and doing all kinds of work to support them in the community, Black community, and other communities as well. So they're going to be coming on shortly. So I'm just waiting for them for Dagma to appear in the chat. And the other thing I want to hit up while we do that, I usually take some time in the beginning to do it, is go onto the police website. And I always do a report on all the things that are happening in our community. And my amazing assistant, Monica, helps me with this by just sending me a report so I can just look at it. Because there's so much stuff that we want to look at from the perspective of community safety and well-being. And we have here Glen Erin, Kilbride, Meadowvale Town Center, and Turner Valley. There was 2 assaults. This is like the crime report on the Ward 9, sorry, on peelpolice.ca and the crime occurrence report. So July 14 to 11, 2 assaults, 1 break and enter, and 1 motor vehicle theft. The 2 assaults were solved. The break and enter is an ongoing investigation, and the motor vehicle theft was also ongoing. So 1 this week. So there's a decrease in all of these different categories, which is good, and I want to see that keep going. So who knows? What's the solution for that? Beyond relationship building and connecting within our community, who's to say? But all I can say is that we can just continue to be aware of it, report it, use all the mechanisms that are in place to report. The online reporting, crimestoppers.ca, neighborhood watches, Safe City Mississauga. These are our primary mechanisms that we're using in the community, ensuring that they're safe, people are safer, and things are being done. So, yes. And there's Dagma. All right. So, Dagma, I'm going to bring you on. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully, this will work. So, give us a try.
There we go.
There you
There we go.
go. Nice, Dagma. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you, Councillor Reid. Thank you for having me on. Now, I was wrapping my head around this thing. You know, I've done Facebook Live, I think, but I don't think I've ever entered in for, you know,
Never been like the special guest?
No. So there's always a first time for something.
Yes. And these are always fun because like I say, it's a conversation. It's not like it's gonna be like this interview where I have a million questions for you. Like feel free to ask me questions as well. Like I do have like a social work background. I love talking relationally about things and ways to, you know, positively impact our community. So I think that you guys are doing great work. I had a great time on the podcast with Maya as well. So yes.
That's awesome. So you do this, what, every month, every once a week? Like, how often are you on here?
No, that's a good question. The cadence is once a week, and there will be times when we make that a little bit wider if there's other events that are coming up. This is my first summer doing this, so we're still trying to figure out the best flow for the summer because like council has ended till September, but it picks up with community events and engagements and stuff. So I was even thinking today, like, you know, I would not that I would rather be outside, but like there's so much stuff that we could be doing in the community. Even like, you know, these are times I would be canvassing last year at this time, right? So I almost like miss that being out knocking on doors at this point and just until the sun goes down, right? So different ways to connect. But the whole point is having different touch points with the community. And also like the poster in the background, support, amplify, and connect. It says along the bottom there, because I think that people like you are doing great work and I want to support that. I want to amplify it because there'll be people who are watching this who may have never heard about the work that you guys do. And I want to amplify that because, you know, whether it's funding or resources or referrals, that kind of stuff is really important. And lastly, just being able to connect people. So someone may see this, say, I know someone who would benefit from this program. So so that's the trade-off, being out in the community and connecting with their residents or being in these spaces and just amplifying the work of people like you are doing. So trying to figure all that stuff out. And it's like a living document, right? It changes as it needs to change. So
yeah, thank you. And I think it's great, you know, like everybody, we're in a digital age and there's so many ways of doing things and staying in touch. So I mean, I love it that you're on here connecting with people in your community once a week. So some people who rather connect with this platform have the opportunity to. So thank you for having us on.
Yes, oh, my pleasure. And for those who don't know you, can you just say like your name, your business, your organization, and yeah, we'll just keep it going from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Dagma Koyi. I know I came in as Dagma Noelia. That's my maiden name. And I just never changed it. I don't know. Maybe I want to disguise for some reason. I'm just joking.
Incognito.
But anyways, yeah, so I'm Dagma Koyi, and I'm the founder and executive director for an organization that serves the entire region. So we serve Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon. And our focus is really BIPOC youth experiencing or at risk of homelessness in the region. A large majority of the youth we serve are Black. And so we're a Black-led organization, B3, Black-led, Black focus. We are just here to really walk alongside you. So I think for anybody listening, some people may not necessarily have some knowledge of homelessness or may not be aware that it's in their backyard. But I'd just like to say, like, you know, on any given day, hundreds of BIPOC youth, especially Black youth across our cities, are experiencing homelessness, and that they are up against an unfair system of scarce housing, you know, inaffordability. We all know about the crisis of housing, and they feel hopeless, if you will, for lack of a better, they feel hopeless against such systems. And we come in, and the way we respond to the crisis is walking alongside them and helping to connect them to housing with community members and providing really extensive wraparound supports for the youth so that they would be able to transition into independence. So that's a little bit about me and what I do through our centers.
It's interesting, you know, because like when I was working at the dam in the 90s, like late 90s, 2000s, I was the housing coordinator. And my job was to connect with families in the community, address issues of homelessness at a family level with kids who have recently, like that was the keyword, recently ran away from home, who were kids who were couch surfing, who were just kind of going from friend's house to friend's house, and we're in that transition. So with my marriage and family therapy degree, I would have those conversations with the family and then with the kid, and then find a place if that wasn't working for the student to stay in someone's house on a short-term basis. So that was the idea behind it, and we didn't have the level of wraparound services that we have today. So it made it difficult to recruit host homes. It made it difficult to really support those kids, but it was a good idea, and it did work, and it did make a difference in a handful of kids' lives. So it's good to see that concept is still around, and that it is making a difference. It is something that is getting some good support. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's interesting to know. I think when we first started years ago, of course, I did a lot of community consultation, and I met with some of the nonprofit leaders, and Carol was somebody that I met to from the dam. And I remember she spoke a little bit about that program that you all had in the beginning and the need for it, because even today, I think, you know, there's still a number of young people coming through the dam who are also experiencing homelessness. So I am aware of that program, but I never knew. So maybe you have some advice for us, you know, like as a housing coordinator, you may be able to have some tips for us, right, Councillor Reid? So maybe I can get my housing worker.
It's too funny.
But
I mean, does it make sense? Yeah, it is definitely. So when we got a chance to meet and chat at the housing conference, you see why I was there and why, like, I feel like these are my people, right? Like, I mean, I didn't walk into those spaces like I'm a politician. I walk in as a fellow frontline worker for that day. You know what I mean? Like, I love this stuff. So
well, the model that you said that you worked with families, and I believe that the families hosted the youth for free. And so with our model, again, we are mobilizing community members to be a part, or to step up to be a part of the solution for this crisis. And so we're constantly looking for landlords in the community with extra spaces. So whether that's a room, whether that's a basement, to work alongside us so that we would be able to help more youth get housed, right? Because We know that housing is like a basic human right. It's a basic human need. And we believe that youth have the ability to move on to permanency if they are housed, right?
Yes.
And every day we have, youth coming into our services, and we have siblings, groups of siblings. When we speak to people, I say that the crisis is like the whole housing issue. Sometimes I feel like it's like a spin wheel. When we think that we have kind of have a grip on the types of cases we're seeing, we keep on seeing all different kinds of cases.
Right, exactly.
Right? And so we're always spinning the wheel trying to come up with, okay, how are we going to solve this case? So when you have 3 siblings who end up losing their house because a parent passed away all of a sudden, and then the landlord evict them, right? And you have 16, 17, 19-year-old, three daughters, and you're now left with that comes to your door, and they come to your door as an agency at a point where they're already homeless. And we already know that we cannot play it down, that shelters are at capacity. When it comes to housing, it's such a challenge. So we're always it feels like we're in a speed wheel, always trying to just be able to just house people, especially youth, safely in our community. And so this continues to be an uphill challenge for our organization, if I should say. I'm not sure, you said about in the 90s you did it.
Yes. Yeah, honestly, and it's crazy, right? Because I was saying this to my guest last week or the week before. We used the term couch surfing as well, right? Like, and I was saying, no, actually, it was Maya, and when I was doing the podcast, I was saying, like, I was saddened, and there's a mixed emotion when I heard, I sat down for one of the first briefings as councillor with the regional appeal staff, and they talked about the housing situation. They used the phrase couch surfing. I was like, that was the word I used to use all the time. And sad to say that, and this is an indictment against the organizations that are addressing homelessness today, but the fact that we're still talking about couch surfing is sad.
Yeah,
so
the problem has not gotten better. I think it's happening a lot. Sometimes we tend to think that perhaps we do not have such a big problem like we have in Toronto, where in Toronto with young people, like, homelessness is so visible. You may walk down the street and you may see them penny handling at the train station, and so homelessness is seen. But in a region like Peel, where it's hidden homelessness, so we have a lot of young people who are couch surfing, living precariously in the shelters, and because of that, people may not feel or know that it's such a big problem, but it is. And again, stabilizing youth and giving them a safe place to stay so that they could focus on other things like education, like their career, is definitely necessary to help them to move forward in life, right? And I think, I like that you brought up that you have that experience, because I just wanted to also, if you allow me to just highlight how I think the situation in the 90s and now is like astronomically different because of pricing. On affordability is like the biggest crisis now that is even facing us, even as we try to connect youth to housing. As a city council, I wanted to just raise to your attention, here is a situation. So we had a particular landlord in the community who wanted to, rent her space for us. We're always seeking options of how we could help to solve this crisis for the youth coming into our programs. And so more recently, we had some landlords who were interested in a partnership where they're offering us to rent the entire property. So it's not just a space or a room, but the entire property. And it's something that we are currently exploring. So we had a landlord who came and said, you know what, I have a duplex, and I really love the work that REST does. And I would like to partner with REST and provide the duplex so that REST can support young people. But, during the process of just renovating that space, a lot of things happened. And, she was waiting to turn over the property, but before she turned over that property, she had other people interested also. And I think the last conversation we had with her, it really, really broke my heart. I remember she said to me that she had a nurse that showed up and wanted the space, not the entire space, but the nurse wanted to just rent 2 rooms out of that shared space for herself and her daughter. And according to her, the nurse was unable to demonstrate to the landlords in a regular apartment for a 2-bedroom in Peel that they had sufficient income to be able to rent that apartment.
Right.
And then she said the nurse was willing to pay her $1,250 per room. And so to imagine this, Councillor Reid, $2,500 in month paid for shared accommodation. It's shared kitchen, it's shared washroom.
Yes.
At $2,500, you cannot even have a decent place to stay as a nurse.
As a nurse.
A working person. So how much more the young people that we are working with on a daily basis, who some of them are not even out of grade 12. They do not even have employment. So the crisis is really astronomical.
Yes.
If a nurse cannot get a place to stay. And I think that, you know what, the more we are able to put out the message out there, and I do believe that there are community members who may not necessarily be interested in renting to the general public because maybe they're comfortable financially, but they just to sensitize them and let them know that it's a real crisis, and the young people coming through our doors are young people who are victims a lot of times of circumstances. You know, think about it. You one day your mom just passed away and then you're homeless at 16, right? With no place to go. So some of the cases are cases that are critical, and if we may have some people who may just have space, financially able to, you know, they're not trying to rent out these spaces. They're okay. They're okay financially, but they're willing to provide those spaces even on an affordable, you know, more like an affordable rate, not $1,250 for a room. You know, and these are the people that we are looking for, people who are compassionate about the cause and willing to say, you know what, I have a basement. I don't need $1,200, I don't need $1,500, but I understand that I'm working with youth, as long as there is, you know, some minimum negotiation around the rent. And also to know that, you know, once a youth is housed, we do not turn our backs, but we continue to support those youth. Every one of them have a case manager. We work diligently to set goals and to move towards a path of independence, whether that's for, you know, employment, connecting them to employment, to training, helping them to continue on the education path. And so if there are those landlords out there listening to me, please connect with us.
There you go. Do you guys subsidize for the renters, or like in some way? Okay.
Yeah. So next time you know when I know that, you know, a lot of advocacy has been going on around housing, and I know even with the region of Peel, when it came to subsidies, there's a waiting list, right? We know that there's a waiting list for housing, a waiting list for subsidy. However, I do know that just with, you know, conversation with some of the housing workers, that definitely there is more that is being requested to be done around housing. It is certainly needed. And so with the rest as an organization, we have not yet been able to, you know, acquire that level of support from the region, which will not be a region anymore. So maybe you tell me what to say.
Yes.
But you know, through our own fundraising, initiatives and efforts, and thanks to our generous donors and funders, we've been able to acquire some level of subsidy. So we have been able to acquire $200 and $400 based on the amount of monies we've been able to raise to support some of the youth with a monthly subsidy, right? And so that's pretty important, because I just want to say that without that, you know, that $200 seems like, you know, it's a little bit, but without $200 or $400, it was absolutely impossible to get a lot of the youth that we serve housed. One of the biggest challenges that we're up against is that majority of the youth coming into our program are not financially ready to be able to acquire housing, right? Especially with the prices. And you know what? Last year, $400 of subsidy was, you know, very helpful. But now, like just last year, I think we would get rooms for $800 a room, you know, with a shared, you know, washroom or whatever. This year, it's like 1,000 plus.
Yeah. No, it's crazy, and that's, I mean, and it's I'm not gonna say it's relative, because I know that when I was doing this and I was looking for places, people would say to me, like, why would I give it to you when I could book it? I could give it to students, international students, and get guaranteed money.
Yeah. But you know, even international students, you know, are up against this market too. And I mean, we do not work with international students, but I've had some international students who have come to even to just volunteer. And some of the experiences that they've had in regards to housing have also been very, very heartless.
Oh
They have
man,
been, you know, taken advantage of by
yes,
landlords in ways that you cannot even imagine, you know, sharing, you know, renting you know, people are literally, come on, people are literally renting a bed space now. That's how crazy this crisis is.
yes,
And some landlords, you know, God bless their heart, you know, we have good landlords, but we have landlords who are just capitalizing on this crisis. And so we have
I'm glad you're
landlords who
talking
literally
about
are
this. It's
renting
true.
a bed space. You know, they put it to a bunk bed and they rent $600 just for that bed space. That's what's happening.
Yep. These are the matters that we're dealing with, people. You know, I'm glad that you're talking about this, because this is life, and we're not talking about Toronto. We're not talking about Toronto. We're not talking about like other places in the world. We're talking about Mississauga,
Yep.
Brampton, Caledon. Like, this is Peel that is dealing with this, right? So this is Meadowvale. So that's it is crazy. Do you guys talk a lot about financial literacy with families, some of that proactive stuff? So that, I mean, like, who's really planning that way? But I mean, obviously, you think of these situations of where mothers die. It's like, well, if only there was a will in place, if only there was life insurance in place, if only there was financial management, so that, you know, because I mean, we're talking about kids who may have debt, right, or who are have financial obligations already due to their families and all those different things. So they're inheriting that as well. Like, what do you do about financial literacy part?
Yeah, so a number of, just to just speak a little to our demographics, and I'll get back to your question. So a number of the young people coming into our program, they have no family supports. So some of them are youth aging out of foster care at 18, without the, you know, that parental guidance or anybody to fall back on to help them, or to even be a guarantor so that they could have a place to stay. Some of the youth are coming from the shelter system. Some of them are, you know, here as new immigrants, and they're that loner immigrants. So we have a diverse amount of youth. So not a large majority of our youth do not really have family systems in place.
Yes.
But however, REST really focuses on a holistic approach. We understand that housing is just one part of the problem, housing a youth. But it's not enough to give a youth housing. You need to be able to empower them for life skill training and development in order for them to be able to sustain the independent living. So after youth coming to our program and they are working with their case managers on goal setting and all of that, and we are working to support them with getting housing, we also create a care plan. Part of that care plan is their life skill training and development. And part of that is financial literacy, because we want to set them up so that they would be able to be successful. Many of them may not understand credit. Many of them may not understand how to live on a budget, you know, how, whatever, you may have a little bit, but we do the financial literacy, teaching them how to have an emergency savings just in case, you know, that they can't meet their rent, teaching them how to make better financial choices, you know, whether I'm gonna, you know, buy Uber Eats or I'm going to cook. We also do, like, you know, cooking, home economic skills. And so we do all of these different things, again, to really build them, and so that we can give them the skills that are necessary to sustain the independent living. And we do things, you know, very practical things too, like how to make your bed, how to optimize a room into a living space, because this is what we're getting right now, right? Rooms in living situations, conflict management. We do also tenant training with our youth on how to be a good tenant, how to build a relationship with your landlord. So all of that is embedded in the program.
Good. That's fantastic. I forgot to mention this for those who are watching. If you have any questions for Dagma, please put them in the chat. You know, love to answer your questions, since we have a resident expert on youth and homelessness and working with the BIPOC community. So please, please put those questions in the chat. I really appreciate that. Yeah, so no, that's good. I'm glad that we had the whole, you know, holistic approach to it. And there's quite a few. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, the families are concerned, we also have a social worker, because we're also trying to do some more work upstream. If we could prevent homelessness from taking place. Some of the causes of homelessness is really that breakdown in the family. We see that a lot among our Black population, especially immigration, is one of the causes of that, right? Like, I'm not sure what's your background, Councillor Reid?
My parents are from Jamaica, but I was born in Toronto.
Okay, so you're born in Toronto. So that typical thing. So if your parents are from Jamaica and you were born in Toronto, the way that your parents were nurtured and cultured and taught discipline is very different from what you know to be true in Toronto, right?
Yes.
And so there is that cultural clash sometimes that are taking place with families. If your family, you know, from Africa, some country in Africa, or some country in the Caribbean, and the way they were cultured and the way they were taught to parent and the way they were taught to discipline, and they come to Canada and then they're having children who are definitely cultured differently.
Right.
There's a lot of cultural clashes, and some of these things actually have led to breakdown in families. And so for us, we're trying to do some work upstream. We've partnered with like the Peel District School Board and some other agencies, and seeing how much we could probably go into some families before they actually break down, to be able to stabilize and build the supports in the home so that the youth can stay home rather than having to leave the home. And if we could be successful in that, then that's a big help to not just the youth, but also to what's happening in terms of the crisis in the number of people that are in need of housing.
I love upstream talk. I'm like anything to do with community safety and well-being and working upstream. I'm all over that. Can you talk a little bit more about your work with the Peel Board in terms of your working upstream?
Yeah, so we have just, I think in September, we're probably going to be more or less piloting this, but we have, you know, spent a few months in terms of like, you know, building a relationship and building that partnership, not just with Peel, but also the Catholic District School Board.
Yes.
And so we're hoping to be able to go in to do some workshops, to be able to talk to the different parents associations in regards to conflict management and things that may happen in the home, and the things that they may need. And then they would be able to, you know that we do exist if that support is needed, that they could reach out to us so that we would be able to provide those supports.
That's great. Yeah. And so, I mean, what is the connection, or if I was to explain what you do alongside what, like Erin, you may or may not know them, but Erin Mills Connect, The Dam, Roots Community Services, CACD, you know what I mean? So is it just geographically, they work in different areas? Like, I mean, what's like, how do all these relationships, you know, what is the working relationship with other different community partners?
Yeah, so we have a number of different relationships with a number of different service providers. And so we do referral services. Both those agencies refer youth into our service, but in areas where we do not have the capacity to support, youth are also referred into other support agencies based on the accountabilities that they do provide. With the DAM, we are looking at providing workshops and going into some spaces and doing things like the tenant training for youth. So because, you know, youth, I know a number of young people, sometimes they're misinformed about what the market looks like. And, you know, everybody is like, I just want to get out of my home, you know, I just want to be independent.
Yes.
Right. And, you know, they're very ambitious with their dreams too, because we have them coming into our services. And, you know, when we ask them, like, you know, where would you like to stay? Everybody wants to stay in the nice condo, right?
Yes,
Until
exactly.
they understand that it's very, very, very unrealistic, right? And so we know that, you know, more awareness and providing more knowledge to the youth, so that when they come or they are ready to enter into that market, that they would be able to have the information to be able to make the best decisions. Other than that, we also know that, you know what, landlords also take advantage of a lot of people in the market when you are misinformed about your rights. And so all of that is also in our tenant training for youth. So people like the dam, and we have PLCAS as one of our leading agencies that refer youth into our program.
Nice.
We work with Our Place Feel. We work referring youth into our programs and services, and we do vice versa based on the programs and services that they do offer. We also refer youth into their programs.
That's great. Yeah, and I'm having these meetings. Everyone, just so you know, as a counselor, I'm always having meetings with different organizations to just find out what they do, how I can connect with them, and also what they're doing, what they're presently doing in the Ward 9 area, in the Meadowvale Central Meadowvale Business Park area. So then I had a meeting with CAS just this week, among other organizations. So in my head, I'm just trying to connect the dots and understand like how they all work together. You know what I mean? So, and how to refer people, where to refer them to and stuff. So I know Michelle, my assistant, was watching earlier, and she helped book this. So when people call into the office, we know like who's the right person to refer people to. So that's great. That's really helpful for me. So thank you so much for that. Yes, once again, if you have any comments or questions, like please put it in the chat. And I know people watch this afterwards as well. So grab this, put this on your post as well. So if people want to just hear more about what you do or just hear your perspective on something. So one of the questions I've been asking people recently on the show is, how did you get into this work? Like whether education, lived experiences that made you decide to actually start this organization, because you're the founder of it too. Like it's not like you're just an employee. So this is your vision that you're living out right now. Yeah. So can you talk about how this all came about?
Sure, I can do that. And so I have a bit of lived experience. When I came to Canada, I came here as a youth myself. I came again to further my education. I migrated to live with my family, and then my family broke down. After being in Canada for 11 months, my family broke down, and I found myself at risk of homelessness, which is what happens to a number of young people. So for a part of my life, in my very early settlement years in Canada, I did couch surfing myself. So I found myself, I said within 2 years, I moved across 5 different cities. And so I know that instability can really have an effect on your mental health. It can also have an effect on even, your own goals and your dreams, because I came here with education in mind. And so for those 2 years, I could not, like I started and I had to stop because it became survival. Like I need a place to stay. I need to get settled. I need to be able to pay rent. And it was very new to me too. It's very different in the Caribbean. We live with our family, we live with our parents, probably until we get married, and I did not know that sense of responsibility, to be honest. So I could understand the pressure of youth who feel like I'm not prepared for that sense of responsibility, and then the burden of that, right? Because all of a sudden, without the preparation, I did not have that preparation because I left, comfortable, and I came here and I did not have that preparation
for sure
for paying rent and for paying. So it was a very scary thing. But you know what? Thank God, like I survived. I like to say I survived. But however, faith is a big part of my journey, and so I remember in my time where I was just very unsettled and just very unsure about my future and what it looked like in Canada. And I, at that place where I felt very down, I really, really tapped into my faith. And just through a time of prayer and reflection and meditation, I remember that I was, I was led to do this. I felt inspired that this was something that I was called to make a difference in, that I would be able to help young people who were experiencing or who are homeless themselves, helping to provide a place for them to stay and programs to be able to support them as they move towards their independence. But I journaled that. That was a plot in my life where, I was experiencing instability myself. I was just trying to get my foot in Canada. But that dream for me meant hope for my future, right? It meant that there was purpose to my pain. That's one thing. And so it gave me a lot of hope. But also I remember at that specific time, I felt like, wow, this is what a big dream. Like, how will I be able to tackle something like that? I did not see the possibility of being able to do this. So I really journaled it, and intentionally I said, you know what, God, when I'm rich like Oprah, I will do this for you. And so I think it became, you know, it gave me some hope that there was wealth in my future, but I'm not rich like Oprah yet. Okay. So
I like your yet. I heard the yet. I heard the yet. Okay. Yes.
I'm not rich like Oprah yet. So anyways, you know, after education, I think one of my first job in the sector was with homeless youth downtown Toronto. I worked with Young Street Mission, and in the middle of the problem, I had no knowledge. I mean, like I said, I was very new to Canada. I journaled this, I pack it away. And it was almost like 5-6 years later, or 7, if not, I started working with Young Street Missions with homeless youth in Toronto.
With
this
Rick?
was my Young Street Mission.
Yeah, with Rick Tobias there?
Yes, Rick Tobias.
Yeah.
Yes, if you know him, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so I was in the middle of the problem. So this was my, you know, homelessness 101.
Right.
Homelessness 101. I was just put right into the midst of this problem, and I had like, you know, like just a full blown out introduction of this problem. And I think from there, you know, I became very, very passionate. And I think if one thing, you know, Young Street Mission does a great job in terms of supporting homeless youth. But even as a frontline worker myself, I was an employment counselor. One of the things that was the biggest need for the youth coming through the door was housing.
Yes.
And it was one of the problems that we were unable to solve. And I remember having senior leadership meetings and frontline staff telling senior leaders, like, we need to do something about this housing. Many of the youth are coming to us, and even we're working with them to help them gain employment. But again, it's not that they could keep him because of the reason that they do not have a place to stay. They still have to call to see if they have a bed in the shelter. And, you know, we kept on hearing funding. We wish we could do something, but there is no funding, right? And so I remember there was a day that I was put in the place of the housing worker just for a day because she was not available. Yes. And it was that time I saw that this problem was bigger than bigger than I imagined. Because the longest lines in Young Street Mission at that time was youth coming to see the housing worker. Yes. That was the longest line. And at that time, the housing worker was only empowered to give out 2 tokens a day to go out for them to look for housing. And they would come back the next day with stories of how, you know, landlords wouldn't take them seriously. Landlords are asking for things that they do not have. Landlords don't want to give them a chance. So it was always defeat. And so as a housing worker, I sat there feeling more defeat than the youth because, you know, you want to help, right? And then after only 20 tokens, that's all. You could only serve 20 youth with 20 tokens. And after that, it's done. You know, as a housing worker, you're sitting there just to hear their story. To hear the story of their defeat. And so I felt really, really powerless, right? And again, I feel like something needed to be done. And I think it was in that moment that, you know, something just packed for me that, wow, this was what you wrote about. I was working in it and I buried that dream, remember? Because I felt like I had to be rich like Oprah. So until maybe that wealth did not come to reality, I would not see it was possible to do something. So it was just buried. But that moment, working that day, it's packed for me. And I remember that thing that I wrote. But I still felt like, but what do I do? So when my employment ended with Young Street Mission, I think there was one message that I heard that just changed my life. And it was that faith is what you need to make dreams happen. And it's not money. Faith is what you need. Faith is the currency of heaven. Yes. And with that message, I was like, wow, so I have just buried this waiting for the money, but I just need faith. And from that day, I began to take small actions. I got into an incubator. I got a mentor who started talking to me about how to start a nonprofit, did the training with me, and I did some training. And that's where I started. In 2015, it was registered, and the rest is history.
Fantastic.
And I've never turned back. Yeah. And one thing I want to say is, at the time, I felt like, okay, it was a big dream. And I didn't think it was possible to do anything because I did not have the finances in mind. And I'm like, you know, Young Street Mission cannot solve this problem. How can I do this? I'm an immigrant in Canada. Where am I going to get that kind of money? But guess what? I felt inspired. And it came from, you know, a place of community, you know, in St. Lucia. Yes. I'm from St. Lucia originally. We help each other. And I never forget, there is something that we do, and we call it in our local language a kudme. And so if a community member is building a house, all the neighbors come and help. and the neighbors would come to help to even lay the foundation at times so that you could save money. And so from just thinking about how things happen home, that you did not have to have the money, but neighbors would help each other, you know, even to build a house. If you don't have all the money, all your neighbors, you bring them, you cook the food, they will help you build a house, right? So I was like, well, why don't I mobilize community? Community have the power to help, you know? And so I felt like I would be the voice to be able to empower community. And that's, you know, from that, the Bridge of Hope program was birthed. How do I get community to understand that they can also step up to be a part of the solution to the crisis if they would partner with us? And so I did not have to build a traditional structure of a shelter, but so far we've had some landlords who have stepped forward and have been very supportive of our cause, and we're hoping that more landlords would be supportive of our cause.
That is amazing. How do I get community to help community?
How do you get community? You know what? I think if community.
Now, I'm just quoting you. I'm just like.
Yeah, because it's not, you know, it's not a government problem. It's our problem. If we begin to see that we are each other's neighbor, we are each other's keeper. You know, if we all see ourselves as, how can I serve my own community? If we help one young person, right, we've helped a future leader. You know, that young person that you saw a seed in today can be that leader tomorrow that will support you. And if people also think about leaving a long-term or lifetime of legacy, some of the youth that are on the street today could be your children. You know, when we think about homelessness, Councillor Reid, maybe some of us, we may be safe in our houses and we may think it can never happen to us. But if you go in the homeless community and even speak to some of the people that are chronically homeless, you will realize how close you are to homelessness. Because sometimes it could just take a fine line, you know, a very fine line. You have very educated people on the street. Something triggered. Maybe they, you know, they went into them. Something triggered. Some life event happened, you know, and they were never able to get mentally stable after that, and they ended up on the street. They ended up being addicted. If we just take the time to be humans.
Thank you.
If we could just be humans, I think that we'll be able to do a lot of impact and a lot of good in this world. So that's how we should help each other. I rest my case.
That's a Selah moment right there. Just pause and reflect. That's so good. You're doing great work. I'm so glad that I got connected with you. So happy I got a chance to meet you and to be on the podcast and just share some of my thoughts and reflections. You know, because it's so aligned with what you're doing here, and I do think about proactively serving our community and the youth in our area, and you know, there's so much stuff that happened last summer when I was campaigning. The number of the violence and you know, human trafficking and things that were happening in this area that's like that soft underbelly of our community that no one wants to talk about. When you start to think about working upstream, it's organizations like you that need to be front and center, that need to be doing the programs and the workshops and the education and just be in those spaces. So I really do appreciate all that you're doing. Thank you for being obedient to that call and not waiting until you had Oprah money to start. Because you wouldn't have had the impact that you're having if you waited for those moments. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. When I get Oprah money, maybe I'll be able to do so much more, right?
Oh,
if I can do this, when I get Oprah's money, I'll do a lot more.
Yes, but you know what's funny, Dagma? This is one of the things that I found out during the campaign. I was reading all these documents on how to do campaigning, and I was thinking, oh, if I had more money, I would do more. I'd have a better campaign if I had all this money. And this document that I was reading was saying that you can have too much money when it comes to campaigning. And the connection is that you think that if I had more money, I could have more signs, and I could have more, you know, more postcards and more literature and more billboards and have more people. And you think that more is better. But the reality is that stepping out in faith, being strategic with the little bit that you have, makes you more creative. It makes you a better storyteller because you have to get people to buy into your story, and it actually becomes more of a community event. So
True.
when you get those wins, when you get those W's, it's a community win because you had to rely on every resource you had. It wasn't just money that you threw at everything. You had to be strategic with the way that you build it. And it's so evident that you've been strategic with the way you built and that you have community helping community. And yes, Oprah money is good, but you might not have had the breadth of impact if you waited till that moment. So there's something powerful to be said for doing things now and taking bold action, taking messy action and doing it now. You know what I mean? So I applaud you for that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. If anybody want to get in touch with us, we are www.restcenters.org. Our telephone number is 905-863-1118. Again, that's 905-863-1118. We're always looking to partner with other community agencies and always looking to partner with community members in solution of the crisis of homelessness for BIPOC youth.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can you, when this goes up, or actually, no, if you can put it in the chat now, can you just type in the website?
Yes,
for people so that they can go into it, and then you'll see, then the hyperlink will be up once we post this live. Yeah. It's so funny, you know, everyone, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Great. Yep. Perfect. Yes. It'll pop up. I can. Yep. There's a bit of a lag, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's just a bit of a lag, but it's good. Just so that, yeah. So it's that's such good stuff. I really do appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us today. That went really quickly. And it's so funny. Every time I say, okay, this is the last one I can do for the summer, then I have a conversation like this. I'm like, oh, we need to do some more of these. Thanks. So
this was a good conversation. Thank you so much for having me on your live. I really appreciate it.
No, my pleasure is mine. Thank you so much. All right. So yeah, so the information is there. And this will be up. So please, if you want to like screenshot, take some sound bites from this and recycle it on your social media. Please, you're more than welcome to do it. Like, please take that. If whatever helps to just move your mission forward, it's all yours.
Okay, so it was frozen. It was all chopped, so I didn't hear anything you just said.
Okay.
So if you probably just want to say that again, yes.
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna say if you want to like screen record any of the conversation, any of the sound bites, things that you said. You have my full permission to use it and just put it wherever you need and just say like, this is a conversation I had with, with the regional counselor or with Councillor Reid or whatever you want to say. And this is our vision. This is what we've been doing. Amplify, like use it wherever you please. Like I love the fact that you can use that recycle. You had some great sound bites that I wrote down about, the purpose in your pain and, again, the question of getting community to help community, like all this good stuff. So use it. And
I will do that.
Once again, Dagma. Yes,
thank you so much, Councillor Reid. It was a great chat with you tonight. Thank you. I appreciate you and all that you're doing for the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Have a good night. Thank you to everyone who watches as well. And see you next time.